Hello there, gamers and gamettes. My name's Lorne Riseley, host of Defunct Games News, bringing you the good, the great, and the gooberific of gaming news every single week. And coming up this week, we go sleuthing as we unravel the controversy of #EAGate. We get further details of the Zenimax purchase by Microsoft, and the highlights to come include a gaming-related intervention that will leave you stunned. Stay tuned to find out more. So you remember last week when I said that the Sinking City story was going to be complicated and convoluted? Well, to sum up this week's first story, I yearn for those simpler times. Because kicking off this week, we have a story that starts with some history, leads into the story itself, which involves a game, but finishes with a tech lesson that I didn't know that I needed, and I suspect you don't either. So for those of you unfamiliar, Electronic Arts, or known as EA, are a gaming Goliath, and also known for being the composers of the hit Broadway musical F*** You, the Musical. They've garnered a reputation for being a little bit on the absolute worst side of games development and publishing, with a series of screw-ups and business practices that make most dictators review their policies as being on the weaker side of corruption and cruelty. Some of their greatest hits include putting microtransactions into games marketed to children, a whole series of workers' rights violations, being voted the worst company in the world on several occasions by multiple outlets, buying the rights to Star Wars and going on to cancel games like Star Wars 1313, but also producing games like Battlefront, which had no story mode. No story mode! In a Star Wars game! And then of course Battlefront 2, which not only got EA in just all of the hot water when the initial release of the game had more grinding in it than a Gears factory grinding pesto bowls while R. Kelly was compiling his report on wrong reasons for a little bump and grind. What? But Battlefront 2 also holds the distinction for the most downvoted Reddit comment of all time, with pride and accomplishment in response. The case in point being that in order to obtain a series favourite, such as Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader, you would need to grind for somewhere between 30 to 40 hours in order to earn the in-game currency to unlock just one of them. And with regards to the loot boxes, gamers criticise the frequency and insistence of them being a crucial part of the experience. And it is here where the plot thickens. You see, in 2018, as a result of a massive consumer backlash that saw the game mechanics reconfigured to reduce the grind substantially, the story had reached the ears of the mainstream media and politicians of various countries who saw the nature of loot box mechanics laid bare, with many stating it amounted to gambling marketed to children. They were right, by the way. I mean, for God's sake, people, it's Star Wars. It's practically made of kids' money. But it's also why you don't have Mickey Mouse making a cameo in Breaking Bad. I am the danger! Belgium moved to ban loot boxes, so did Australia and those sexy Dutchmen. And the state lawmakers in Hawaii sought to outdo them all by introducing 4 bills that regulate the sale of video games that feature loot boxes, or loot crates as part of their gameplay, with State Representative Chris Lee coining the phrase,
"This game is a Star Wars themed online casino designed to lure kids into spending money. It's a trap."
I understood that reference. However, EA's finest spit roast came in 2019. Appearing before the UK Parliament's Digital, Culture, Media and Sports Committee, EA's Vice President of Legal and Government Affairs, Kerry Hopkins, insisted that loot boxes aren't akin to gambling, but are instead surprise mechanics.
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was...
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
Like Kinder Eggs. Quote, "We think it's like many other products that people enjoy in a healthy way, and like the element of surprise," she lied. She stated. EA's representative at the hearing went so far as to say that loot boxes are actually quite ethical, quite fun, quite enjoyable to people. Sure, in the same way it's ethical to make games developers work 100-hour weeks. I think she's confusing the word ethical with legal, because sure, something can be legal, but really unethical here, people. However, a key point in this hearing was the defense made by both EA and Epic Games that due to the fact that loot boxes are purchased with in-game currency and that the items purchased or won have no real-world value given their limited application to the games they're purchased in, that by its definition, loot boxes cannot be classed as gambling and would therefore not be subject to the same age restrictions or regulations. Setting aside the fact that you have to use real money to buy the vast majority of the points that are required to buy anything in-game for a second, the technicality defense, the alternative is that you grind in-game for the points. So basically, unless you want to grind for points from the start of when you play the game to roughly 20 years after you die, the only alternative is to pay to get the points in. So in summary, you only have one word for the defense. It's 8 letters long, begins with B, ends in T. Can you guess what it is? But now with the history lesson over, we catch up to current day events and the latest controversy. Because you remember that crucial element to their defense? The fact that their in-game assets have no real-world value? Well, is that so? This week, during our DGN board meeting, as it turns out, the hashtag EAGate popped up in our feed when it came to the topic of non-fungible tokens, known as NFTs, or more broadly, as crypto art, as complaints have been made that someone within EA has been selling FIFA's prime icon moment players for huge sums of cash. Now for context, EA makes a veritable ton of money from not only FIFA Ultimate Team's points, but indeed the Ultimate Team franchise mode within all of their sports games. How much money? Try $1.4 billion in the last year alone, and functions as a way of players being able to compete by building teams, by purchasing packs or cards that improve or alter a team's composition, chemistry, and overall rating. The better the cards, and the rarer the cards, the better the team, and yes, typically the legitimate ways to acquire these cards require trades between players or by purchasing them in loot packs or loot boxes, and has been that way for years, with more recent games adding not only legendary cards, but teams of the week and teams of the year cards as ways of keeping players incentivized to buy packs each and every week. These cards are incredibly rare, and it should be noted that Icon or Team of the Year cards aren't just rare because of the famous players on them, but because of their competitive stats. They're some of the best in the game, and indeed surpassing some of the standard cards issued when the game is released. For those of you still not grasping, think of a shiny Charizard, right? Now think of a first edition shiny Charizard that's maybe 20 to 30% better on the card and somehow shinier too. That's the equivalent between a standard card that's issued when the game is released and a dope-tastic card that EA tempts you with after the game's been out for a few months. But again, you can't purchase these cards with real money. It's impossible. It's not allowed. It would undermine EA's entire ethicality of the loot boxes argument. It would be catastrophic for them if someone were to find a loophole and start selling them en masse. Well, colour me surprised mechanic, as we have screenshots of a text exchange between an alleged EA employee and a FIFA 21 player trying to purchase FIFA Ultimate Team Icon and Team of the Year cards. In the text exchange, the seller was offering rare cards for around $1,000. He also appears to offer a menu of items, including 3 Icon cards for €750 or $895, and 3 Icon cards and Team of the Year cards for €1,000, around $1,200. According to the chat screenshots, a person seeking rare FUT cards just needs to provide their PSN, an EA ID, and the appropriate funds. And when asked by the buyer if there's a reason to worry about being banned, the seller says there's no risk, but can't divulge why out of concern for security. Quote, people are paying $2,500 for an R9 card, Ronaldo for those not in the wear, and $1,000 for rude hullet moments, just to get them listed on the market. This is a hammer blow, people, not just to EA and their defense of loot boxes argument, but also to you, me, and every other consumer out there. And let me explain why by giving you a brief summary of what the holy hell an NFT is. You see, in recent weeks, the ethicality of non-fungible tokens has been called into question with the prominence of certain purchases, such as a $200,000 purchase for a 15-second clip of LeBron James dunking, highlighting a genuine cause for concern and outrage. NFTs are cryptographic assets on blockchain with unique identification codes and metadata that distinguish them from each other, essentially allocating a monetary value to a digital asset in order to create a digital marketplace for items that otherwise would be considered equal in value and without an inherent owner. They're incredibly complicated to fully explain, but their unhindered use has the potential to cause issues such as the EA Gate debacle, given the seller will likely attempt to utilize the defense of an NFT as a means of escaping punishment. EA have since responded to the allegation, stating a thorough investigation is underway, and if we identify improper conduct, we will take swift action. We We want to be clear, this type of behavior is unacceptable, and we in no way condone what is alleged to have happened here. Sort of. Well, duh, it undermines your ability to sell loot boxes to kids. But for the rest of us, this serves as a sobering tale. Not only with EA's insistence that there was no way of circumnavigating their securities and anyone having the ability to be able to abuse this system, which has been proven to be 100% not true, but also the potential dangers of NFTs as people scramble to claim assets that they have no real lawful right to claim and are forced to pay exorbitant amounts of money in order to claim them and utilize them for their own. Not to mention, by the way, this huge environmental damage they do. This, by the way, is a clip that Cyril sent me, and as you can see, this is just one field being utilized for NFTs and crypto arts, and look at it. It's a whole goddamn server room in a crate in the middle of a field generating power just to sustain itself. It's ridiculous. And if you think this is just limited to EA, Final Fantasy XIV's been getting in on the act this week as players have been exchanging stolen or black market items for prices. They've actually banned 5,000 to 6,000 people as a result. But yeah, kind of a bleak way to kick off the show. I know how to make you feel better. I got some Phoenix down off the back of a lorry. I can sell it to you. 100 gil. Cash in hand right now though. No questions. No questions. And coming up this week, we take a look back at the week that was Defunct Games as it played host to a digital deluxe delight of dopeness digital things. I will memorize that, damn it. I wrote it, for God's sake. Surely I should be able to memorize it by now. But coming up first this week, we had our next installment of the Game Over series, with a look at the Sega CD version of Wild Woody. Cyril states, with a name guaranteed to make you picture an erection, this pencil protagonist was developed, published, and then quickly forgotten by Sega. But we're not going to forget about this 16-bit oddity, so turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the story and ending for Wild Woody on the Sega CD. This is Game Over, the early years. Sorry, couldn't help myself. And coming up next, we had a video that we need your help on, as Cyril seeks to update the links on the Defunct Games website. Cyril exclaims, do you have a video game website or a YouTube channel? Are you a friend of Defunct Games? If so, we want to hear from you. The 20th anniversary of Defunct Games, 20th anniversary, damn. Just around the corner, we're updating our links section to point to new talent, great game critics, and more. In this lengthy video, we'll be going through all of the links currently featured on the Defunct Games website in an effort to see which are working, which are dead, and which haven't been updated in years. See what makes the cut and what gets added as we get a head start on our spring cleaning. He also had a review of Horn Knight, which is going to go live and is going to be awesome because of course it is, it's a Cyril review, and a brand new quiz of the online pass for you to play along with me and Cyril. I'd give that one a miss considering the landslide with which he won, which is, I know, Macaulay Culkin shock. He won another quiz, good for him. But to be honest, I think I've given you plenty of reasons to watch everything on the channel as is. Is there no placating you? What do you want, money? Do you want my PIN number? Is that what you want? Fine, here it is. My PIN number is...
And the game award goes to, oh man, I have to pay a microtransaction to unlock. That's so stupid.
8. Okay, happy now? Coming up next, we have a story that comes as absolutely no surprise to anybody, save for Mr. and Mrs. Backass of nowhere on the corner of Under a Rock Boulevard. Zenimax Media is now officially a Microsoft property. Further to what we reported previously, Microsoft's $7.5 billion acquisition of Zenimax Media, the parent company of some of the world's best-known developers such as Bethesda, Arcane, id Software and more, has been finalized, signed, sealed and delivered after first being announced back in September of 2020. This extravagant acquisition means Microsoft now has 23 studios developing for it and Summers boxes in an attempt to spice up its line of strong first-party exclusive Xbox games, which was seen as a weakness for the Xbox for at least the last generation. I mean, let's be honest, I like my Xbox to play on, but in terms of bragging rights when coming to my friends on the PS4 with their Sekiros and their Last of Us Part 2s, I ended up twiddling with my thumbs and playing with my calculator out of boredom. you see, you can spell boobless with it. It's more amusing than waiting for what they're going to call the latest Halo or Forza games. Forza Horizon, Forza Rainbow, Forza Speedy Locks. As stated in a post uploaded to Xbox Wire, the high exalted and underwhelmingly named Phil Spencer stated, "This is an exciting day for Xbox. Today, we officially complete the acquisition of Zenimax Media, parent company of Bethesda Softworks. It's an honor to welcome the 8 incredibly talented development studios and their passionate global communities to the Xbox family. Now that everything is official, we can begin working together to deliver more great games to everybody. Our goal is to give these teams the best foundation for doing their greatest work and to learn from them as we continue to build Xbox into an inclusive platform for all players." Lovely platitudes and everything, but a lot of what he said we already knew. But some of this post seems to betray the true nature of the purchase and indeed the ramifications going forward, as it relates not just to currently announced games, but future titles as well. As we shared previously, it's vitally important that Bethesda continues making games the way it always has. Xbox and Bethesda have long shared a common vision for the future of gaming, both as fans and as creators. Bethesda understands the potential of Xbox Game Pass, clearly indicating that their business model of stacking their online pass as a means of attracting players with the promise of a hefty library of not only previous titles, which is working hard to bolster, and backwards compatible titles, but also future titles as well. I mean, who could forget that chart-topping and award-winning song that they released to hammer that point home?
So many games on your Android. So many games. Oh boy, so many games. For now and later. So many games. Cloud gaming beta.
I genuinely have nightmares about that song to this day. Spencer promised that they would be bringing additional Bethesda games into Xbox Game Pass on the 11th of March as a way of grabbing the interest of those still on the fence about which console to purchase for this generation, although he didn't say which games they would be. Oh gosh golly, I hope it's a Halo or a Forza game. I haven't played those to death already. Nah, actually it turns out it was a slew of mainly Bethesda games, obviously. We had Fallout 4, Evil Within, Rage 2, and a bunch of Doom games. The post from Spencer went further than he has done previously in confirming exclusivity of titles from these studios to Xbox, stating that it would honour Bethesda's existing terms of agreements to make Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo as PS5 console exclusives, but that they would decide which of the publisher's future games to make multi-platform on a case-by-case basis. Xbox CFO Tim Stewart was slightly more forthright when he said that at the very least, games from Bethesda and other Zenimax studios would be first or better or best on Xbox platforms, which roughly translates to as they rub themselves with all the money that they're going to be making from all the exclusives that Sony won't be selling. I kid, of course. Spencer did also say it's vitally important that Bethesda continues making games the way it always has, and it's likely that some of their games are going to end up on other platforms as it would be advantageous to their bottom line. Plus, it's not like they're going to be short of titles. This is coupled with a statement made by Xbox Director of Program Management Jason Ronald, who claims that Microsoft still has some as of yet unannounced Xbox games coming out later this year. Yay, another reveal event that's probably going to go 30 minutes on a Thursday night. Me with no overtime. Yay! And while this sale has yet to bear any immediate ramifications, it is worth noting that Bethesda alone is currently working on one of the most anticipated games of all time in The Elder Scrolls 6, a new sci-fi RPG called Starfield, not to mention a new Doom and a Fallout game in the next decade given their extraordinary success within their respective genres, and that's not including games by other developers like Obsidian and id Software that Microsoft also owns. Well, certainly going forward it seems like if you want to tame Tamriel, waste some Wastelanders, or do-si-do on Demon Domes and Doom, you're gonna have to get your hands one of them there sex boxes, or at least get yourself an online profile on your PC and sign up for yet another monthly subscription service on top of Netflix, Disney Plus, and Defunct Games, of course. Subscribe. Subscribe. Give us money.
A few moments later.
But switching gears now, we come to what is now the only recurring segment on Defunct Games, considering that CDPR have bucked their ideas up. Doomsday Clock, as we count down the inevitable demise of the Google Stadia. For the story this week, it starts off embarrassing, to be sure, but in the long run, this might actually benefit Stadia and help Stadia. I know, I called Cyril a filthy liar when I heard him give me this story. But hear me out, people. According to Verge, Microsoft has started publicly testing its new Edge Chromium-powered browser on Xbox consoles. Xbox testers in the alpha Skip Ahead group can now access the new Microsoft Edge on Xbox One or Xbox Series S and X consoles. But why is this related to Stadia, you ask? Well, one benefit of the Chromium browser on Xbox is allowing it to work with browser-based streaming services like, you guessed it, Google Stadia and also Amazon Luna. Additionally, even though Xbox consoles have native access to Xbox Game Pass, this could theoretically also allow for Xbox's cloud gaming through a browser once Microsoft adds support for it in spring of 2021. And this should also allow for improved compatibility with browser-based games and services like Skype and Discord through the web. And again, this comes back to the embarrassing moment. Stadia, a standalone cloud-based gaming service, is going to have to rely on a hardware-based rival for exposure. I mean, chef's kiss for irony. While full mouse and keyboard support are still missing, the browser works as you'd expect with an Xbox controller, albeit a little buggy in the initial test version according to the testers. Now, despite my earlier jest and somewhat embarrassing admission that their business plan now need to get the rub from Xbox, this is a somewhat of a double-edged sword, because access to an existing customer base is now crucial to Stadia's survival after failing to meet sales targets of controllers and subscribers to its service, and this development could open that door. On the other hand, Microsoft did just announce the Zenimax thing. We covered it 5 minutes ago. Why would anyone want to jump through additional hoops to get to the Stadia when you've got Phil Spencer twerking bare-assed with Beth on one cheek and Esda on the other? Doesn't make any sense. Bet you're glad I didn't animate that though, but good luck getting that mental image out of your head. Your guess is as good as mine as whether or not it's going to be a legitimate way back for the Stadia. However, suffice it to say, there's a damn good reason Anthony Mackie wasn't asking about it in his most recent advert. Snapped out of existence and you come back after 5 years asking about an Xbox. Slightly anticlimactic, right? And wasn't Thor playing Fortnite for the last 5 years as well? Couldn't you have asked him what's new and hip in gaming? But hey, credit where credit's due. It's not a complete disaster for Stadia this week. And any week where the Stadia manages to limp over the finishing line of a week is just more content for us next week. And finally, we wrap up the show by wrapping up the week with all the stories you might have missed that we think are going to tickle your pickle and give you a giggle. Am I repping? For shizzle, my nizzle. Bars. Bars hotter than a Rust data center.
Oh my god!
It's okay, no one was hurt in the fire, so you're okay to laugh at the joke. Unless you're one of the people that lost their account in the fire, in which case fine. I'll drop the joke like it's hot. So first off this week, do you have the burning desire to come face to face with a Kobe Bryant's life-sized version of Mario from your nightmares? Well, good news for you, as Universal Studios have announced that Super Nintendo World Osaka will finally open its doors to the public for the first time next week on the 18th of March. Due to open last year on the 4th of February 2020 alongside the now postponed Tokyo Olympic Games, visitors can now experience the Mushroom Kingdom as the state of emergency has officially lifted in Osaka. This could be good news, but I have made a slight note here. And I'm not one to point out the obvious, but given all of the fireballs, ravenous pipe plants, and recreational drugs just strewn across the place, I see this theme park as nothing more than a series of staggeringly expensive lawsuits waiting to happen. Joking aside, as shown in a 15-minute virtual tour published late last year by Nintendo, visitors will be treated to the likes of augmented reality Mario Kart, Bowser's Castle remade in gigantic scale, and armbands that you can level up through games for rewards. There's even some hints that Donkey Kong could eventually arrive in Super Nintendo World. Great, on top of all that other dangerous stuff, I've got to worry about Donkey Kong lobbing crates at my cranium. Bowser stealing my fly girl as I'm making my way to the slush puppy stand. I don't think this place is for me. I think I'll stick to my Robert Pattinson sticker album. It's fun, free, and highly flammable. Coming up next, and I will be honest with you, this was my favourite story of the week. It seems Microsoft need to do a better job of plugging their online store for gamers. Why, you may ask? Well, after escaping from prison in 2020 and spending the following weeks and months in hiding, a man in the UK was arrested after popping out to buy a copy of Call of Duty. According to the West Midlands Police, 36-year-old Clint Butler, an escaped prisoner from the bold and beautiful Birmingham, ventured out into the big bright world on the 13th of January 2021 to buy a copy of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Butler had been hiding from the police, as back on the 28th of November 2020 he'd slipped out of Her Majesty's Prison Spring Hill, where he was serving a 17-year extended sentence for crimes including robbery and firearms offences. Officers were alerted to Butler and his friend when they suddenly changed direction, having seen them, and when challenged, Butler gave a fake name before attacking the officers. He was subdued with help from local security guards and was sent back to prison. Which, as we all know, by the way, is a rookie mistake. The guy was hiding for 3 months, and no one likes a camper. So what did he think was going to happen when the opposing team clocked him on their 12? Butler has since had his sentence extended by another 19 months following the act. Quite why he decided to risk being returned to prison by making the idiotic decision to come back into town during lockdown with a friend to buy a video game will remain a bit of a mystery, West Midlands Police Superintendent Nick Rowe said. According to Butler's accomplice, when arrested, Butler told the police, "I've come to get the new Call of Duty because I can't sit around in lockdown." Well, genius, I'm sure there's not going to be a lot of sitting around doing nothing in prison. I just love how it never occurred to this weapon of mass destruction to buy the game using the online store. You're in lockdown all this time. You don't think to Google it before you leave the house?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
And finally this week, Fortnite will kick off its new season with a brand new solo mission mode after a bomb drop of a season finale. In a blog post, Epic describes the touted story mode as a reality-altering explosive event that concludes Jonesy's mission in the Zero Crisis finale. You'll be able to play through it when Chapter 2 Season 6 starts on the 16th of March, or watch it online in cinematic form during a global premiere at a later date. For those unaware, the recent Galactus Live event, which Galactus attempts to consume the Zero Point, which will destroy the, Fortnite verse, I guess. The heroes, led by Iron Man himself, drove a battle bus full of explosives into the Globe Gobbler himself, causing a black hole of continuity that transported the protagonist Jonesy into a room in a state of alert, and sent the Marvel characters back to their own universe, setting up a brand new season. Oh, the drama. It even had AC/DC rocking in the background. Eat that, Metallica! No matter what your opinions of Fortnite are, two things are sure. Number one, that Galactus reveal was insanely epic. And number two, a single-player mode in Fortnite? I mean, that news is enough to make a grown man cry. My little Battle Royale game is growing up so fast. It's gonna be a real game now. Well, that's been the happenings of the week. My name's been Lorne Riseley. This has been Defunct Games News. I certainly hope you enjoyed that video and you're inclined to like, share and subscribe as a result. Also, be sure to check out the reviews and other content that I've mentioned in the video today, and indeed any content going forward. Be sure to go and check out the Defunct Games Discord, and more importantly, the Defunct Games website. Give us a hand with those links. We want to hear from you. Also, be sure to go and check out Cyril over on Switch Planet. He would appreciate your support over there, as would all of us here on the channel. But before you do any of that, I certainly hope you're taking care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for watching this week's episode of Defunct Games News. If you like what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every weekend. Now here's the question I have for you. Which video game world would you like to be seen turned into a theme park? For me, it's got to be Jet Set Radio Future. Rocket boots, magnetic skates, graffiti? Sounds awesome. In other news, we have a big week in store for you, including Cyril's take on Male Mole and Wind Peaks, as well as a few fun surprises we can't talk about yet. But if that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Till then,